Hey everyone, I hope you're having an incredible day. So I thought I would hop on here and do a little money manifestation FAQ and sort of like just a manifestation FAQ in general, but we're going to be kind of more focused on money. So I'll give everyone a few more moments to hop on. This was just sort of like an impromptu thing that I decided to do, but because I feel like I get so many questions about just manifesting or how do you manifest money, there seems to be a lot of confusion around this topic, so I thought I would just hop on here, have a little FAQ. Hi Kirsten, how are you? And if you guys have any questions, of course, just pop it in the chat and I will answer those as we go. So the first question is defining what is a lack mindset and what is an abundant mindset. So I think it's really important to break down what actually do these terms mean. So a lack mindset is you are seeing scarcity everywhere. I thought this was a really interesting example. Some of you know that I've been learning to trade, and in the community it's been really interesting seeing some people's lack mindsets, because they'll be oh well, I got 3 winning trades, but I only got a profit margin of I don't know, say for example 10% or 25%. That was my profit margin, and they're really down on themselves because they're even though they got 3 winning trades in a row, they were down on themselves because they were oh, but it wasn't a huge win. So this is where straight away you can start seeing this is a lack mindset. You just won 3 times, but you're focused on the fact that oh, it wasn't that much. And wouldn't you rather have 20 winning trades that were smaller, or 19 trades where you lost and one really good one? You can start to pick it apart immediately, where you're okay, you can instantly see what you're getting, it's not enough. And if you have the energy around money that no matter what you have, even if you're winning, it's not enough, you're just going to be seeing more and more evidence of that, because we train our minds what to focus on. We train our minds what to pay attention to. And the way this happens is what you tell your mind is important. So if you start being that's not enough, even though I got this, that's not enough, your mind is it's never enough, and it straight away puts you into a scarcity mindset. And we can do this about so many things, even with the example of online dating. Say you're on Tinder and you're swiping through and you're there's just no good guys out there, or girls, or whoever you're into. That's what you're going to see evidence of. If you're there's no one out there, everyone who's out there is shitty, people are mean, people ghost, I don't want to be rejected. If that's the mindset that you have around anything you do, that's what you're going to attract in, because you are literally putting blinders on and making it so that your mind cannot see any other reality. It doesn't matter if the person of your dreams showed up at your door, you probably wouldn't see it for what it was, because you are so focused on being in that lack mindset, and you're just focused on how you believe that there's not what you want out there. I hear this a lot actually with people when they're dating, and I've probably been guilty of saying this at some point too, but you'll be oh, I can't count on I can't even believe the amount of times that I hear this from people. And I know people who live all over the world, and everyone says the same thing. And I'm well, this can't be true for the entire world. People will be oh, in my city, there's just no good people to date. There's no good guys, or there's no good girls, or everyone who's good is already taken. And I'm well, this can't ultimately be true for the whole world, because people are getting married, people are falling in love, people are doing whatever every single day. But if you're choosing to believe that there's no good guys or girls or whatever out there, then that's all you're gonna see, and you cut yourself off from any other potential existing. And I know that sounds really wild, but this is the way that we train our mind. Your subconscious mind, it is noticing everything that's going on around you all the time. And that would be really overwhelming for your brain if you had to pay attention to everything all the time. If you could feel the fabric on your clothing, if you were paying attention to your butt sitting on the seat, if you were oh, that bird is doing that over there, it would be so overwhelming and so distracting. And the way that we're able to filter things out is through our beliefs and our conscious mind. So when your conscious mind is okay, well, these are my beliefs, my beliefs belief is like, there's not enough money, like however much I make, there's not enough, I'm not making enough, then that's what you're going to see the evidence to support. But if you switch it around and you have an abundant mindset and you're like, I always have enough money, I'm grateful for having a roof over my head, I'm grateful for being able to pay the bills, you immediately feel that shift in your body. And this is the first place where you can start to look, where if you're like, I'm not sure if I'm in an abundant mindset or a lack mindset, how does it feel in your body? And this is something else that I think people get really caught up on that I actually really hate, is people are like, I'm a realist. And I'm like, what does that even mean? Reality is different for every single person, and your reality is really subjective based on your subconscious beliefs and what you're like choosing to put your attention on. Like, me and someone else can have like the exact same day, but we can focus on different things. And for us, reality will be completely different. And reality is just like an outward projection of what you believe on a subconscious level. So like when people say they're a realist, I'm like, yeah, but that's your version of reality. That's not someone else's version of reality. Something else could be true for someone else. I always think it's really interesting to put it in context. Like, especially in like Western cultures, we'll be like, oh, like, I want more money, I don't have enough, like I'm not rich, whatever. But if you went to like a third world country and you looked at what you had in comparison to them, you're super wealthy, you have so much. So it's like redefining those terms of like, what does wealth mean to you? What is abundance? Like, how can you be grateful for what you currently have? And of course, like, no one is perfect at this. Like, we all have days where we're like, I really want to be over here. I'm over here right now. This is how much money I'm making. This is how much money I want to be making. Yeah, absolutely. It is so true. And like, I think it's important to be like, okay, I can be happy where I am at the same time as striving for something else. But it's realizing that like over there is not better than over here. If I'm making this amount of money and I'm not happy with it, I won't be happy over here making this amount of money. I watched like the Paris Hilton documentary a little while ago. I don't know if any of you have seen it, but obviously like Paris Hilton is born into wealth. I don't think she's ever been poor in her life, but she went through some really traumatic experiences. And this is like something I kind of want to get into a little bit later because it's important when it comes to manifesting money. But like, you can sort of see even her psychology from just watching it. Like, she doesn't feel safe in her body. She doesn't, like, I'm just analyzing this as somebody watching from the outside, but I think I'm pretty accurate with what I'm getting at, but you can see how she doesn't feel safe, she doesn't feel secure, so she's constantly trying to get more and more money because she thinks that that level of wealth will finally make her feel safe and secure, because things happened to her in her childhood that made it so she didn't feel safe, she didn't feel secure, and now she's like subconsciously looking for things to give her that feeling, but it doesn't actually matter the amount of money she has in her bank account because it will never feel like enough because she doesn't feel safe and secure within her body. So that's why it's so important to be like, when you decide that you're like, okay, I'm going to manifest more money, like looking at like, what do you want this money for exactly? Is it because you think it's going to make you feel safe? Is it because you think that when you have that, you'll finally feel secure? Is it because you want freedom? Like, none of the answers that you're going to come up with are wrong. And like, when we do this work, I think it's really easy to judge ourselves and be like, oh, like, you're a bad person for wanting more money, or like, you're so greedy. And the point of like looking at why, it's not to judge yourself, it's just to kind of gain an understanding, like, what do I think that level of wealth is going to give me? Like, what do I think I will feel when I have that? And for most of us, it's like safety, security, freedom. Like, we're all very similar in that way. We want the same things. But the thing is if you don't feel safe and secure within your body right now, you're not going to feel it when you have $1 million. You'll probably, if anything, feel like more insecure because you're like, well, now this can all be taken away from me. So when you want to be manifesting money and you want to change from a lack to an abundant mindset, you really have to start looking at like, okay, how can I heal the things in my past that made me feel like I wasn't abundant, or made me feel like I'm not safe, or that I'm not secure? How can I start healing those things first so that when I obtain that wealth, I'm able to manage it, I'm able to feel comfortable with it, I can feel safe holding that level of wealth. And that's really going to be the thing that like makes all the difference. And now we're gonna like hop a little bit into talking about trauma. And I think sometimes people think trauma and they're like, oh, it has to be like sexual abuse, or it has to be like child abuse, or like some really huge thing, like they call it like big T trauma. But trauma doesn't have to mean that. Trauma can mean like anytime that your like nervous system is like overwhelmed past the point of you being able to like regulate it easy, which happens to us a lot as children. And then that kind of gets stuck in our nervous system. And then like it builds over time. And then we realize that we have these feelings within us where we either get triggered by things, or we kind of end up like feeling unsafe or anxious or fearful. And when you have those feelings, like money is not going to solve that for you. Like, I hate to break it to you, but like you have to address that level of healing. You have to address those traumas first and do it on a subconscious level so that you can create that safety and security within your body. And when you feel safe and secure, that's when you have like a safe base to go and explore from. And this is really interesting because I think the way we show up in relationships is also very similar to like how we show up to our money. So there's like what's called like attachment theory, and basically it stems from what was called like the strange situation. And it was an experiment they did in the 70s, I believe, where they took children and they basically had a couple different situations, but they had like the children, I don't know if you can hear the birds right now, but they're going off. Anyways, so they had these children, and the children had their mothers, obviously. And so they would examine what would happen if you left the child in the room and their mother left. And obviously, like, they were being observed. The mother wasn't going anywhere. She was just in the next room. And then they had, like, the researcher come into the room. They watched how the child interacted with the researcher. And then the researcher left, and then the child's mother came back. And they discovered that it seemed like babies attached to their caregivers in one of three ways. Like, there was babies who had, like, a secure attachment to their mother, or, yeah, to their mother, because that's what they were using in the experiment. And when the mom came back, they were maybe a little bit fussy at first, but then they were comforted by her being there. They were like happy to interact with her. The second was like children who got really anxious and upset when their mother left. And when they came back, they still like weren't calmed by it. Like they were still upset even when their mother returned, and they were still like fussing and they weren't really happy. And then the third one was like, I call it like a disorganized attachment, where like if the mother left and she came back, the child wasn't comforted by the mother coming back. Like the child sometimes would almost like hit her or like push her away. And so the way that we attach to our primary caregivers, I feel like I see a really big link between that and the way that we attach to money, because it's like money represents like safety and security and being cared for and taken care of. And like that's what our caregiver was for us too. And so the way that we expect our caregivers to be is often the way we expect money to be. It's like, do we feel anxious around it? Do we expect it to come back? Like, do we know that when we spend it, like more will show up for us? And obviously this isn't like hard and fast rules, but usually the way you are in one area of your life, there will be parallels in other areas of your life. So there's a lot of things you can do to like heal your attachment to your like caregivers or like to your money, but it's like having more money will not just solve that problem, because you'll just have the same problem but with more money. So the work to do is like the work around your attachment and feeling safe and secure and like healing those traumas first. And then when you get more money, yeah, money absolutely has an energy. I mean, I think everything has an energy, and I think the way we attract it is like how familiar it feels to us to feel safe and secure. Because if we never had that growing up, or like our common thread was like, oh, I don't feel safe and secure at any point in time, or I don't feel like the people who are supposed to take care of me will make me feel safe and secure. When you have that, it will feel weird to you. And so your mind always wants to like avoid the unfamiliar, and like it likes to stick with what's familiar. And this is why people so often choose like really like not great partners to be with, because that's what feels familiar to them. And to people on the outside, they're like, why do you keep choosing partners that are so shitty to you? But for them, that's what they think love is, and that's what feels familiar. So if they were to date someone who had like a secure attachment style, treated them really well, they would probably like get out of it or cause fights or do something to disrupt it, because that would feel really weird to them and they're not used to that. So when you want to change like the way that you attract money, you have to kind of change the way of like what feels familiar to you. And I always think of like your money situation kind of like a thermostat. Like a thermostat will always bring the room temperature back to wherever you've set it at. And that's how it will be with money as well. Like if you have like a financial set point of like $50,000 a year, it will feel really weird for you to go a lot above that, like really quickly. So that's why you kind of have to do the inner work to be able to hold that capacity of like having that level of money and actually holding on to it. So how do you get an abundance mindset? That was one of the other questions. I sort of like tapped into this a little bit with what we were talking about. Like you really have to heal those like emotional emotional wounds around like your feelings of like safety and security and worthiness and like your ability to receive. But it's also like the way that you change how you're attracting money is by showing up in a different way. Like if you keep showing up in the way that you have, then that's the situation you keep attracting. And if you want to see where you're at, well, like with your money situation, we'll just like look at your present reality. Like that will tell you what your sort of energetic frequency is with money. But if you want to adopt an abundant mindset, you have to start thinking like people who have a lot of money. And you can find this in books. You can see like evidence in real life. You can try and find mentors. You can see other people who have changed their journey and start looking at like, what do they believe? Like, how do they act around money? Like, do they spend it and they're like, oh my God, when is it coming back? I can't believe I spent that much money. Like, I did such a bad thing. Or are they like, I spent that money and of course it's going to return. Like, investing in myself is the best thing I can do. Money always shows up for me. Money is always available. So having appreciation for what you have and also having positive expectation about the future is really the key to manifesting more money and like getting into an abundant mindset. And always, no matter where you're at, being grateful for what you have, because that's the frequency of someone who has more money. Like they're grateful for what they already have, looking for opportunities instead of lack. Like, is the way you're thinking, does it make you feel good or does it make you feel bad? Do you feel expansive or do you feel contracted? Like when you think those thoughts. And this is a process, of course. Like it's probably not going to change overnight, but one of the best ways that you can start changing this is by adopting like a mindfulness practice. And mindfulness at the core of it is just being present in your, like it's contacting the present moment as the present moment is. You're not trying to change anything. You're not judging it. You're not shaming yourself. You're simply like noticing what is and like accepting the moment. And if you want to start changing into an abundant mindset, like something you can do just to really anchor this in for yourself is like put like an elastic on one of your hands, and then every time you think like a negative thought about money or like a scarcity thought, like change it over to the other wrist. And all this is doing is getting you to notice. Like you start paying attention, like, oh, I thought that. Oh, I thought that. And then if you really want to take the next step, you can be like, well, is that ultimately true? Like, can I say that's hard and fast and true rules for like everyone? And the answer will probably be no. So then you can start to pick it apart. And this is when you kind of go down like that conscious process of rewiring your thoughts to think different things about money. Another question that comes up is like, why is some things easy to manifest and other things are really hard? And I think most people will have an area of their life where things come quite easily to them, where they're like, oh, like I don't really have to try in that area. Like it just sort of works out for me, or like I just attract like the right situations. And in other situations, they'll be like, this is really difficult. Like say, for example, some people are really good at attracting like really positive relationships, and that's really easy for them. But they might be really like struggling with their career or feeling like they're getting where they want to go in their career. So it's like looking at what are your thoughts and beliefs and assumptions in that area that's really positive, and how can you start applying it to that area of your life that is like a little bit trickier or rockier for you. And at the core of it, some things are easy to manifest and others are hard. Sorry, I just need to clear my throat. Some things are easy to manifest because you have subconscious beliefs that support you in that area. So we start programming our subconscious really early on in life. From the ages of 0 to 7 is really when it gets set. And those subconscious beliefs, we usually carry them throughout our life, and we just keep building evidence to support that. And then later, in life, we're just like, oh, we just accept that to be true because that's what's true for us. And this really comes back to what I was saying earlier with everyone's version of reality is really different from each other. So when something's really easy for you to manifest, say for example, you grew up in a house where your parents have been together your entire life, they're super in love with each other, you're probably going to grow up with subconscious beliefs that a relationship like that is possible. You can meet the love of your life and you can stay super in love with them for the rest of your life. You'll really easily believe that because you have the subconscious evidence to back it up. But for someone who grew up in a house where maybe their parents divorced really early on, and then they're going to grow up with a belief that relationships don't work out, there's no point in getting into a relationship, you just get burned, and then they're going to be seeing more and more evidence to support that. So the areas that things are easy to manifest in your life, I want to out how can I start applying this feeling to other things? How can I start having this level of expectation that things just work? Okay, hopefully the live's going to work. The internet's going a little bit weird at the moment. So looking at the areas of your life that you just feel flow and things are easy, how can you start applying that to other areas in your life? The most effective way to manifest money. So I feel I've been kind of talking about this the whole time, but manifesting money is not a one and done affair. Most people will be if you ask them, they'll be well, what do you want? And they'll be I just want to win the lottery so that I have all that money and then I can just do whatever I want. But the thing is would you rather not believe that you're consistently attracting money through your whole life instead of just having to get it in one lump sum one time? I know the answer from you would be, yeah, I want to be attracting it all the time. I don't just want it to be a one and done affair. Then it feels it's a fluke. And I don't want it to be a fluke. I want it to be I've consistently worked on my money mindset so I get to a point where I'm just attracting it money all the time. So I lost where I was in my notes. The most effective way. So, I guess to break it down in the easiest of terms, the most effective way would be to address the subconscious beliefs that you have around money that are blocking you from manifesting that money, releasing those beliefs, reframing, rewiring them, embedding new subconscious beliefs about money, and working on your self-worth. Because money and worth are really tied together. When you feel worthy of being supported by the universe, then you're able to attract in money and situations a whole lot easier. So addressing these two things, your core beliefs about yourself and your worthiness, and then also your beliefs that you have around money, the stories that you have around money. When you do those two things and you do them constantly and consistently and practice on a conscious level, adopting a mindset that supports you manifesting money, and you're doing it on a subconscious level, that's the most effective way to manifest money. Some other things I like to do in the short term are I will write down the number that I want and I'll write it on a post-it note and I'll put it somewhere where I can see it really easily. This is kind of showing your subconscious, this is what I want, this is what I'm focusing on, and then you have to have that general expectation that it will show up for me, where you have to do the previous unblocking work for this to work really well for you. But then once I've done that, I'll write down that number, and then every time money comes to me, I'll subtract it from that total number. So I'm showing my conscious mind it's working, I'm attracting the money, it's coming. Because a lot of the time we'll set a number or an intention for us to manifest money, and we'll get it without even realizing it. So the more evidence you can show your brain that this works, the more it just builds that framework in your mind to show you that when I set an intention for money to show up, it shows up. And a lot of conventional manifestation techniques will be you have to keep thinking about it. You just have to feel really positive. You can't think any negative thoughts. That's not true. You don't manifest from your conscious thoughts. You manifest from your subconscious beliefs and your self-worth. So I wouldn't worry too much about trying to keep your thoughts and like suppressing your other ones, because that actually doesn't work. In psychology, we have like what's called mental rebound, where basically the more you try and force a thought down, the more that thought will try and pop back up, and then you're just fighting a losing battle. So knowing that about that, we can be like, okay, we're not going to try and repress those thoughts, but we're going to examine them using that mindfulness technique that I taught you earlier. So if you're like, okay, I really want to manifest $1,000 by next week, and your conscious mind might be like, how is that going to happen? Is it going to work for me? I don't know if that's really going to work. You can just be like, okay, I'm noticing that these thoughts are coming, but I don't have to attach to them, because my mind's job is to come up with thoughts. And so if that wasn't ultimately true, what would I choose to think instead? And also, how can I adopt the mindset of someone who just like assumes that that's going to work for them and keep choosing to like feel that way instead? Because the thing about your thoughts is, well, you don't manifest from your thoughts, you do manifest from like your feelings about things. So you really want to like get into the feeling of having it already. And I don't really like the term like fake it till you make it, because like you can change your feeling state at any point in time, and like that's not faking it, that's like you're changing your physiology, but you have to choose to do that. And there's a lot of ways that you can do that, but you can like either go for a run, you can jump up and down, you can listen to some music, you can choose to think different thoughts. Like your thoughts really create your feelings. So when you can change your thinking, your feelings will change, and that will change your actions, and then you will show up and do the things that you need to do to manifest that money. So the last question is, my manifestation takes ages to work. So this implies that like your time frame for something happening is like better than what the universe sort of has in store for you. And the universe never says no. It says like, yes, not right now, or like something better is coming for you. And so when you have that desperate energy around being like, I need this thing to happen right now, you're kind of cutting yourself off from like any other better like potential from coming through. So when we think like our manifestation takes ages to work, it's like, okay, well, maybe like you need to change who you are in order to be the kind of person that has that thing. And I don't mean that like you have to be a different person to get what you want, but I kind of do, because the version of you that has everything that you want, they're thinking and believing and doing certain things that you are probably not doing right now. So when you want to manifest something and it's taking a long time to work, I think it's always really powerful to like vision on the version of yourself that has those things. Like just journal it out. Be like, okay, the version of me that is making like $100,000 a year in my business, what am I doing every day? How does my day look? What am I showing up as? What do I believe? How do I feel? And start doing those things right now. Like become that $100,000 version of yourself right now, because you can do that. Like that's within your power. And when you start showing up as that version of yourself, you will see very quickly that like things in your outer world start to change, but it is going to require you doing something different, because like what got you here is not going to get you there. So this is always going to be different for everyone. That's why it's hard to be like, oh, a hard and fast rule is to do this. But I think connecting to that inner voice, connecting to your intuition is going to be the thing that allows you to like transform the way that you're showing up, because you will be able to get clear, get into that good feeling space, check in with your intuition, and your intuition will guide you where to go. It'll tell you what you need to do next. You don't have to figure it out by yourself. And this is a practice that takes time. It takes like building up that connection to your intuition. It takes building up like that connection to like trusting that intuition, which is really important. And sorry, my computer's just doing some weird things in the background. But the more you do this, hi, thanks for joining. The more you do this, the more comfortable it will become for you. And that's why it's like on the internet, there's so many people being like, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. If you're not doing this, you're doing it wrong. And the thing is like what works for one person is not necessarily going to work for another person. We're all different. We're all on our own journey. So like the way that I like to break down, like if I want to manifest something, like here's what it kind of looks like. I'll be like, okay, here's the goal. And then I'll usually try and like anchor it in something I can see, which is maybe like a vision board, or I'll like journal on it, or I'll like script it as if it's already happened. And then I'll focus on like being like, okay, like what are the beliefs that come up for me that say I can't have that? Like, is there anything in me that's not within like alignment with having that? Like, does my intuition feel like that's even something I'm supposed to be aiming for? And a way that I like to communicate with my intuition and you can do this as well, is just by like checking in and like asking yourself and seeing how it feels in your body. And like I will usually, like, a yes is on the left side and a right is on the no. And so you have to ask like a yes and no question, obviously. But if you are like, okay, should I do X, Y, and Z? And then just get really quiet and like listen to like what side of the body you sort of feel that activation in. And it'll tell you, like, is it a yes or is it a no? And if you're kind of new to this sort of like connecting with your intuition, like it's really helpful to do it on something that is like, you know, it's true. So like you can be like, is my name Bob? And see how that feels. Unless your name is Bob, then do it with something else. But you can be like, okay, is today Tuesday? And just like close your eyes and see where you feel it in your body. And if it's not Tuesday, you should feel it on the right hand side. And when you get used to this and you practice it more and more, then you're able to build it up and get really quick within it, because then you can be like, okay, like here's an idea of what I was thinking of doing. Should I do that? Yes or no? And then check in with your body. And the more you do this over time, like the easier it will get and the faster you'll be able to do it, because you're not looking for guidance from other people. Like you're just getting that information from yourself. And the more you build up that trust within yourself, like the easier it will be to like shut out the noise of what other people say you should be doing and like follow like what's right for you. Because I think like we all have that inner guidance within us, but sometimes we end up looking at other people because we're like, oh, they have that thing and I want that thing, so I must have to do it the way that they are doing it. But there's a million different ways to do things, and the way that's right for someone else is not always going to be the way that is right for you. So yeah, I mean, I guess that kind of wraps up that question of why does my manifestation take ages to work? I think like the long story short is sometimes it's just not the right time for it to happen. Sometimes there's something better coming through. Sometimes you need to be like working on something within yourself to be the right person to attract that kind of thing. But the most important thing is kind of like bringing yourself back to the feeling like, if I already had that thing now, like how would I be feeling? Because the only reason we ever want to manifest something is because of the feeling we think that we're going to get from having it. And so if you can figure out a way to have that feeling right now and then start showing up as the version of yourself that has that thing, then like inevitably those two things will have to collide at some point in time, or you'll find something else that you want more, which is also great. So that's it from me today for this FAQ, but I also just wanted to remind everyone that the doors are open for Money Manifestation Mastery, which is my self-paced course that teaches you everything you need to know about how to manifest money. It has the subconscious reprogramming in there so that you can rewire your money mindset, clear out those money blocks, embed like an abundance mindset on a subconscious level. And it's 30% off for Black Friday, which is going until tomorrow at midnight, so you can use the code Black Friday. The link is in my bio. And just to quickly sum up like who it's for, this is really for the entrepreneur or like anyone who just feels a lot of fear and anxiety around money. Like, you know that you're kind of stuck in a scarcity mindset, like money feels really hard for you, even though you're working really hard, you're maybe not making the money that you want. It's just like, if you feel like shame or guilt or frustrated around your money situation, this course is really going to allow you to transform that. And what it's really going to do is just like clear out those blocks. It's going to go way deeper on everything I was talking about today around how to change your money mindset, how to get an abundance mindset, like the practices you need to be doing daily to really like achieve that next level of your money mindset. And it also has the subconscious reprogramming. It has some psychology tools to really help you shift your daily mindset, shift how you feel, so that you can just feel as good as you want to, for as much time as you want to. And for today only, we are doing a little bonus, which is the 30-minute one-to-one coaching call with me, and that's for today only. So if you sign up to the program today, you will get that free 30-minute coaching call as well. So I hope you have an incredible day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye for now.